in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon Se, Samvad Saroकार News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you on the current topic. And today our topic is role of youth in eradicating corruption. But before I will go to the main topic, I would like to inform you today India is celebrating National Energy Conservation Day. National Energy Conservation Day is celebrated every year on 14th December in India. In India, Energy Conservation Act was implemented by Energy Efficiency Bureau BEE in 2001. Energy Efficiency Bureau is a constitutional body which works under Government of India and helps in the development of policies and strategies to reduce use of energy. The objective of Energy Conservation Act in India is to appoint professional, qualified and energetic managers and auditors who have expertise in policy making, financial management and implementation of energy-related projects. The true meaning of energy conservation is to avoid unnecessary use of energy and to use at least energy so that energy sources can be saved for future uses. We hope everyone should include energy conservation in their behavior. Now coming to today's topic, that is role of youth in eradicating corruption. The biggest disease is corruption. The vaccine is transparency. Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The World Economic Forum estimates the global cost of corruption is at least $2.6 trillion or 5% of the global gross domestic product GDP. According to the World Bank, meanwhile, businesses and individuals pay more than $1 trillion in bribes every year. Corruption is one of the most complex social, political, and economic phenomena which has affected all countries in the world. Not just this, as per the United Nations Development Program, the funds lost to corruption in developing countries are estimated at 10 times the amount of their official development assistance. Corruption is criminal, immoral, and the ultimate betrayal of public trust. It is even more damaging in times of crisis as the world is experiencing now with the COVID-19 pandemic. Corruption in India is an issue which affects the economy of central, state, and local government agencies in many ways. Not only has it held the economy back from the reaching new heights, but rampant corruption has stunted the country's development. A study conducted by Transparency International in 2005 recorded that more than 62% of Indians had at some point or another paid a bribe to a public official to get a job done. In 2008, another report showed that about 50% of the Indians had first-hand experience of paying bribes or using contacts to get services performed by public offices. In 2019, their corruption perceptions index ranked the country 80th place out of 180. The largest contributors in India has emerged as the country with the highest bribery rate of 39% in the Asian region, according to a survey by global civil society organization Transparency International. India also has the most number of people, 46%, who use personal connections to get access to public services. The corruptions are in entitlement programs and social spending schemes enacted by the Indian government. Examples include the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and the National Rural Health Mission. Other areas of corruption includes India's trucking industry, which is forced to pay billions of rupees in bribes annually to numerous regulatory and police stops on interstate highways. Out of those surveyed in India, 42% paid bribes to the police, 42% used money to procure documents, and 38% paid money for court matters. A worrying aspect of the report was that while reporting corruption, at least 63% of the participants said that they feared retaliation. The media has widely published allegations of corrupt Indian citizens slashing millions of rupees in Swiss bank. Swiss authorities denied these allegations, which were later proven correct in 2015 and 16. The causes of corruption in India includes excessive regulations, complicated tax and licensing systems, numerous government departments with opaque bureaucracy and discretionary powers, monopoly of government-controlled institutions on certain goods and services delivery, and the lack of transparent laws and processes. There are significant variations in the level of corruption and in the government's efforts to reduce corruption across different areas of India. The duty of youth is to challenge corruption. And today our topic is role of youth in eradicating corruption. And we have with us our chief guest. I invite and I welcome our chief guest of today's program. He is Mr. Sanjay Pandey Ips. Mr. Pandey is the Director General and Commander General of Home Guards, Government of Maharashtra, Mumbai. Mr. Pandey is Indian Police Service Officer of Maharashtra cadre of 1986 batch. Mr. Sanjay Pandey, besides holding several posts of involving law and order duties in Mumbai city, also heads the economic offences wings of Mumbai Police. Mr. Sanjay Pandey earlier was the Prime Minister's security as a member of a Special Protection Group, New Delhi. Mr. Pandey holds a master's degree in public administration from Harvard University, USA, and is a bachelor's in technology, computer science from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Welcome, Mr. Sanjay Pandey on our show. Mr. Pandey, you being a police officer, such a senior police officer, you know the conditions of the corruption better than anyone else, and you have worked as a head of the economic wings of Mumbai Police, the Maharashtra Police. So, and the involvement and the role of youth is very important. Although there was a report which says the youth are paying more bribe than the senior citizens. So this is the condition as far as the youths are concerned. But we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Mr. Sanjay Pandey, IPS, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, for introducing me. It's a pleasure to be with such young audience here, and particularly after hearing Mr. Goel, who set the tone for today's subject. Well, to start with, I would say that yes, it's very sorry that we are within the 42% of the people who are supposed to be the most corrupt. That is, you said about the police. I have been through about now almost joining from 86, it's about 34 years in the government service. I've seen various phases, various types which have happened and which are there in terms of corruption. I'll try and elaborate as I go forward. But let me also talk on the basic subject that you talked about, the role and where the youth is. As we define the youth, we talk about people up to 29, somewhere they call up to 34, 15 to 34. And India is actually, they called it a demographic dividend. They said that India's dividend of the youth is a very major factor in guiding the future of this country. And that's something that the youth has to keep in mind. If I'm not wrong, we are around 35% in terms of young population in this country. And this is talking about up to 34 years of age. This is the time you're the most productive. This is the time when you can, I'm not saying that you cannot be productive afterwards, but I think the efforts made between this period are actually more lasting. So the role of the youth in anything, forget about just the corruption, anything towards nation building is most important. If you go by history, maximum number of inventions and maximum number of inventions which have changed the course of countries, which have changed the courses of continents, have happened in less than equal to 35 years of age. I'm not saying that we are discounting ourselves at no point of time. Mr. Goel and me, we are not discounting ourselves. But yes, you are the major contributors, and I think you have that role there. Let me now analyze from my own perspective why we are into the situation that we are. We heard we are 80th ranked out of 180 in the United Nations. We scored just 41 marks out of 100 in the Transparency International. An unfortunate part for this audience is that Transparency International doesn't even work in this country anymore. That's the recent part. So why do we have so much of corruption around? I don't want to talk about where you paid traffic, where you paid school, you paid every walk of life. To my mind, I think we have a very deep-rooted corruption when we start the day we are born. Now, you may be surprised when I say this. The sense of entitlement, the caste-based situation, you are privileged few who are staying in 35% of this country. That is the urban land. The 65% stays in rural India. And Mr. Goel, you would know, and I don't know if the youngsters who have been to the villages, actually, I belong to a village and I had the privilege of being there. The zamindari system, the caste system exists. My village is in Kanpur. I come from a village called Ghatampur. We still don't have people of a particular caste who can pass by or can go by the houses that we live in. Now, you would say, what do you do? What will you do? And that's where I'm coming to. So, sense of entitlement, which this country is ingrained with, the caste system has not gotten away. You talk about a religion, you say that person is so and so, that person is so and so, his caste, his upper caste, his lower caste. This is existing today. You as a youth have a role to say, look, these typecastes don't work anymore. And then comes obviously the economics of it, which is talk about we the class situation, the caste and the class. The class situation in India is also too skewed. The poverty levels, you will not imagine. You probably get a square meal every day. But I had the opportunity of working in places like in Bombay, Dharavi. Now, Dharavi is its own cosmos, its own situation. I'll just give you an example. I used to have a robber who used to rob every day and used to be caught every day and somehow gets bail and out. Theft, I would say. Theft is all bailable. I asked him and I called him to my office, why is it that you're doing so? He said, sir, if I don't do it, I've got a mother, I've got a wife. How do I feed them? Now, you will call it criminal. Somebody may call it, he will pay money and get out, corruption. So he does crime, leads to corruption, pays money, gets out. This I've witnessed myself. Now, why is this happening? If we had the money, if we had, now Mr. Goel talked about various schemes of the government. Those schemes are meant for the poor. So if they reach the poor, if they really, I sometimes when this pandemic started, I wrote an article. I said, why can't India give these poor fellows 6,000 rupees a day, 6,000 rupees a month? That is what I had calculated. I had some economics to calculate it. Lo and behold, the biggest country in the world paid that money, paid somewhere around $2,400 to all citizens who are drawing less than $75,000. We didn't pay so. We didn't do so. I'm not naming anybody. But that led to a massive, massive corruption in this country. In the sense, the corruption was Are we living in a civilized society where people were traveling in you would not, I do not know if you really heard about it. There are concrete mixers. The concrete mixers are supposed to mix concrete. They're all closed. We had people traveling in those concrete mixers to avoid being detected. A lot of them died. Nobody talked about it. So the sense of deprivation in this country is also, you see, the person was deprived, he went robbed, he became a criminal. And to get out, he paid money. He indulged in corruption. Now, how do we take this out? I will just take these two factors as our guiding factors, and we will be talking about this. I think the sense of the caste and the poverty, the two things, the caste and the class, I think our education is a major issue. You think I'm sorry, I'm not casting any aspersions, but our primary education, we, pro- we probably have nothing more to do but to really educate our primary education levels. You you are you given education at that age, which is like, I mean, I'll give another example. If you if you uh, the values which are given to you when you are between, say, 5 to 14 are probably the ones which make or break your career, and that's where the teachers are most important. The role of youth to be and educate and take it forward, and is a very important aspect which I think can can be a role in education. I would say, I'm now quoting somebody. I don't want to, but the name of I will take, because I do not want to take this as my things. A person was asked. I think the President of India, Mr. Abdul Kalam Azad, was asked by a student, "Sir, how do we remove corruption?" And I think when I was preparing for this and I read through, and you can also see it in the net, in 2004 address on the Republic Day, Mr. Kalam said that this is a three-dimensional approach. It's you as a youth, your father and the teacher, your parents and the teacher. These are the three aspects which will take you forward and which could help reduce corruption. How do you work? How do you go about it? Get yourself educated. Make sure that the sense of entitlement that your family propagates. Sorry to say this, I'm talking about my family. My mothers and my grandparents also came from an entitlement family, and this they were trying, and they did in their own sense wanted that the same should be propagated. No, you have to revolt, and you are the ones who have to make sure that there's a sense of equality. So that's where your family comes in. And teaching, if you were aware, I would, whenever I had a chance, and this is one of the chances, immediately I accepted when the youth was there. Try to make people aware. Try to make people aware what is good, what is wrong. Many of the rural India does not know what is good or wrong. Many of the uneducated do not know. The robber did not know that, look, this is the only way that he could do it. So you have a sense of responsibility to educate. You have a sense of responsibility to do this first in your family and then take it forward. If your family talks about entitlement within your group, inner group, then I think this is a sorry state of affairs. As we continue this, we will talk more, and I think we could probably set goals. And I think Mr. Goel told me that I'll have 5 more minutes. In the end of this, I like to talk about certain goals which we as a youth get set for ourselves to make sure that we live in a better world, and we are not ranked 80th in the 180 index, much higher. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey, for giving your frank opinions about the corruption in India. And Mr. Pandey said, yes, it's a very sorry state And he says being in the police for last 34 years, and now the police is ranked, as per the report, is 42% people pay bribe to the police department. And he says there are many factors, but the primary factor, according to Mr. Pandey, is which he has quoted even the late our President Professor APJ Abdul Kalam, and he said the primary thing is the family, the parents, and the teachers. Until unless the good things or the values were not invited in the youngsters or the children, then it leads to the corruption in future. And he has given an example about the schooling, and although he has not given the clear cut, but he means that even if you are going for a school or in the initial stage, and if you are from a privileged class of the family, you would like to use those corrupt practices to get the admission. So the corruption starts from the beginning. So like the proverb is, the charity begins from home. I think what Mr. Pandey means, the corruption also begins from home, because if the family gives good value education, and the teachers, the primary teachers give the good value education, which he says from 5 years to 14 years is the time when a child has to be given the value education. If the values or the morals were giving, then the child will not be doing any corrupt policies, practices afterwards. And he has given his experiences, which he has mentioned, that even the robber or the thief is not knowing what he's doing is correct or not correct, because he also feels that this is required to survive and not the survival for his family. So the corruption can be controlled, but only thing is the youth or the every citizen has to come forward. But because the population of youth, although Mr. Pandey told the population percentage up to 35 years, but the general population which the government takes is 65% below 45 years in India. And India is the youngest country in the world. But the unfortunate part is, in our parliament, the first parliament was having 26% MPs below 45%. And today, in this present parliament, only 12% MPs are below 45 years of age. It shows that the participation in the policy making of youth has declined. So we are following the older generation, not the younger generation. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, for giving your views. I'm sure this will enlighten not those youth who are present in the program, but all the viewers, because you being the helm of the so many important departments in the police department, and you had even the economics offense wing, so you know how the corruption is taking place and what is the remedy for that also. Thank you very much, Mr. Pandey. We would come back to you once we will take the views of our youth guest. Now I would like to invite my first youth guest. He is Mr. Alan Chaco Nelson. Mr. Nelson is a TEDx speaker and a Rex Karamveer awardee, constituted by the United Nations and ICONGO. Mr. Nelson, welcome to our show. You have heard what our chief guest, Mr. Pandey, has spoken. Now, we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Mr. Nelson, please.
Hello, everyone. A very good morning to everyone, to the chief guest as well as to Lal Goel, sir. Thank you for having me here. So the topic was role of youth in eradicating corruption. So as you rightly mentioned, India's population is the world's youngest currently. So it's our role to curb such important problems is quintessential. So like what I've observed through my experiences is that corruption has moreover evolved from the previous stereotypes and has taken into a more camouflaged approach. So what are the roles that we can do as youth? I mean, what we have done through my experiences was firstly is being self-aware of what corruption actually is, because it's a multifaceted term and it has a lot of nitty-gritties and a lot of terms and conditions which underline. So understanding both the sides of the problem, and like I can give an example of in our university, because I mean, as you rightly mentioned, sir, students were not attending school. So not attending school is also a sort of a corruption, because that seat is supposed to be occupied by someone who actually wanted to study. So what we did is we introduced e-attendance system where students have to take their own selfie and their data was recorded. So this also acts as a factor for the teacher as well, because a teacher is also motivated when he sees a full classroom. So that also adds to the morale and also adds to the diligence of the students. So secondly is through spreading awareness. So while I was working for Barefoot College as the project lead for coffee, we run a social enterprise for empowering rural women. So I started working in Vishakhapatnam district and empowering the women coffee farmers. So the problem that over there that was there was that they were selling coffee cherries for 80 rupees per kilo. So there were a lot of exploitative middlemen. They did not know the value of their own produce. So just a small awareness session of how they could take 3 steps further. That is drying the coffee cherries, dehulling it, sorting it as per the standard. They are able to, and roasting it. They're able to get 1,000 rupees per kg. So this awareness they were not knowing, and a lot of people in the nearby towns or middlemen, they were exploiting this. So through the MSME Spurti scheme, we were able to decentralize the entire value chain and empower these rural women to become change makers in their own society, and they are able to get a dignified value of employment for the produce which they are able to produce. So next is respect. Respecting people, that is the rules and regulations. Like as you are aware of the COVID pandemic, there are a lot of cases that is happening in the airports also where people are not complying to it. That is also an act of violence, which is also another part of corruption. People are even paying for getting the tests readily done. So that's also another issue. Doctors being bullied because they are in the frontline workers. Like my sister, who is right now studying MBBS, she is able to tell me the current stories, what doctors are facing. So that is also another facet of corruption. Um, the main thing is to respect the law of the land and also, respect as human beings. So next step is empathy, having empathy. So when I was teaching in a rural school, there were students who were bullying girls, bullying boys. They were destroying school property, they were stealing sports equipments. So what solution we did was, like how sir said, we gave them more responsibilities. We told them to take responsibility of taking care of the classroom, taking care of the sport equipments, taking care of the attendance. So in that way, they were able to be more responsible. And sometimes, just a little bit of love and guidance is all that is needed for them to change, as people. And surprisingly, they even got selected for the Navodaya exams in the rural villages. So next is innovation. If you're a rural youth who could innovate, that's another thing to go against corruption. I had to design a solar coffee roasting machine. So a commercial coffee roasting machine is like 30 to 40 lakhs, which is quite expensive. So we had to use the local version of it, that is decentralizing it and making it by rural women. So the entire solar coffee roasting machine is fabricated by rural women, and that is like 200% less cost than the total machine, and we even scaled it up. So some solutions which can help in involving the local people also adds a sense of motivation to them. Then next point is jugad. Jugad is another thing that I learned in the village. So while I was teaching sports in a rural school, we had to develop a sports ground. So developing a sports ground, contractors, getting JCBs, road rollers, lot of money you have to pay, in hand, because the construction workers will not pay or will not agree to it. But once you are able to learn Jugaad, you are able to get the work done for free. So it is all just relation building and building good relations with the people. Next is listening. Listening also helps because in Vishakhapatnam district where I was working, most of them are Naxal and Maoist areas. So the husbands of the women who I work with are either involved in this. So how do we get them also involved in making it more homogeneous and in a harmony is by involving them in the value chain directly. So we asked them as to why they were doing all of this. Is that they weren't getting any other opportunities, so they had to do something to get their families meet. So they are the ones who carry the monitoring and evaluation, do the impact assessment, do the village surveys. The sarpanch is a woman, so they mobilize the crowd. So in that way, it's a more holistic approach where you're involving everyone as a community and making change. So it's a teamwork.
Please be
And
brief, Mr.
yeah,
Nelson.
yeah. And lastly, as I said, is a little bit of love. So we always remember our teachers who are nice to us, and we are always remembering. Sometimes, I mean, I can give my own example where I had to lie to my parents to go to play football and take money, but later on, their same behavior is what changes me as a person to not do that and accept. So a little bit of love also helps. So that's all I have from my end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. And Mr. Nelson, you have made one point in your talk, and you said that the attendance, the children are avoiding attendance, and
Yes.
we have to make. See, Mr. Pandey knows because he has taken the degree from Harvard. Abroad, there is no compulsion for attendance because they believe that if you are a student and if you want to study, you will study yourself. And even the students are not going to the classrooms. They prefer to go to the libraries. And that type of faith, even the parents have. What our chief guest has mentioned was very clear. The value, education, the morals. If the parents will give the morals initially to the child that, see, if you are going to school, please attend the class. And in case if you are not attending the class, please spend that time for a good thing, for the things where you are going to be educated, either spend in the library or wherever, but it should be for the, then it is better than to make a compulsion. And that leads to the corruption, because we have seen in many of the cases in school and colleges, to get the required attendance to appear in the exams, the corruption, the bribes to be paid,
Yes.
and then those things. So I think the change the youth can make a change here is to see to it the parents should give that type of value education to the child, as well as the teacher should also invite what our chief guest meant. I think that it should be started from the very beginning. Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson, for giving your views. Now I would like to move to my next guest, and she is Miss Apurva Paul. Ms. Apurva Paul is working as an intern with Indo-Gulf Marketing Association under Marketing and Research Development. Ms. Paul, you have already heard our chief guest as well as earlier panelist. Now we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Ms. Paul, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir, for the introduction. So good morning to one and all present here. Myself, Apurva Paul. Firstly, I am thankful to my chief guest and Lal Goel, sir, for having me here. So I see corruption as a mortal enemy for young democracies. On this note, I shall begin today's speech, Role of Youth in Eradicating Corruption. We all know what is corruption and how the corruption is a part of everyone's life. Be it political, educational, or financial, corruption is prevailing from ages. Everyone is in the grip of corruption. Even purchasing a commodity and not getting a bill is also a corruption. False weighing, which is happening nowadays. Charging high and bribes, giving a bribe are corruption. So the issue has to be portrayed. And today our aim is to encourage the youth like us to engage and inspire others to be honest. And if we are being honest, then the better is the future going to be. And also youth, how is playing significant role to reduce the corruption. We as a youth should take the responsibility to create awareness and encourage our upcoming generation who are the next spectrum of future. We know our rights, we know our power. So with positive note, we should raise our voice against corruption. We as a youth should uncover many corruptions if we get support, opportunity to do so. And we have this immense ability to uncover them through technological innovations as well. If we reduce the discretionary power, we are seeing the less corrupt system. Ultimately, today's youth are the mind makers of tomorrow's world. Youth is not only about age, it is also about thoughts and the direction they want to go. It is cultural values and ethics that a person should have. Youth of a nation will ultimately create the vision. Youth is the future. So if we start today, we will get a better tomorrow. We have a vision of growing our society. The youth can stop getting pressurized by the seniors. and take the right decision so that the future of the society is in the sun's light, not in the dark. With increasing awareness, youth are taking actions. They're aware when to do and what to do. There are many such examples where we can see that how youth is taking actions and getting engulfed, where they can protest, they are arranging campaigns to stop and uncover the false acts to get the right track. They are also making their family members understand and rectify them if they try to get involved in any wrong deeds. Like Sir rightly said, that ultimately everything starts from home. As Sir also rightly mentioned that about 65% of India's population is under 45 years of age. And even if 45% of them shows courage, then we might reduce the corruption by 75%. We cannot say that we can remove corruption within few years, but yes, we are confident that if we take actions and start doing things, then we can reduce the corruptions. So I just want to say that we should be the bright youth of nation and support each other to challenge and eradicate corruption. Thank you, sir. That was all from my side.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. You have given a very, very good vision of yours, and you are saying that such type of good things you have mentioned. Now, my only simple question to you is,
Yes,
are you a fan of any of the film stars today?
no, sir. No, sir.
Okay, you are not. But you know the youths are fans of many of the film stars.
Yes,
and
sir.
whenever there is a new film of that film star comes, I'm talking of pre-COVID area. This is a
Yes,
different
sir.
time.
Yes, sir.
And you know that how the youth goes to that movie theater, purchase the ticket in black, and see
yes,
the
sir.
first show. Don't you think it is a corruption? But
Yes, sir, absolutely.
when he comes or she comes back to the home and says, oh, I've seen that so and so, my favorite hero or heroine's movie first show, or first day first show, by paying 200 or 300 or 100 rupees extra, and the family is saying nothing. It is the reason. So if
Yes,
what you say is correct, if you decide, the youth will decide, no, we will not pay anything extra, even a small example of the film or anything, then definitely the corruption can stop in the future also. Thank you very much, Ms. Paul, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Mr. Arjun Prakash. Mr. Arjun Prakash, he is assistant professor at St. Aloysius College, Mangalore. Mr. Arjun Prakash, please. Mr. Arjun Prakash, I will just tell you that you have already heard, although you joined late, you were the last person who joined today, correct? And you have heard what our chief guest as well as your earlier panelists have spoken. So would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Mr. Arjun Prakash, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. So good morning all at the very outset, I would like to quote a poet from DVG. Hosa Tiguru Haleberu Kudidere Marasobabu. If at all we are beginning anything new, we have to start with the young generation. That means the nurturing has to start from the plant till it grows. Is the role of youth important here, or do the adult have to nurture the young minds? In my opinion, if both join hands together, then we can build a corruption-free nation. Youth is like a pure water. It takes the shape of a container. To the water, we can add medicinal qualities or poisonous qualities. So how do we treat the water is very important. Now the question is, how do we decide whether medicinal or a poisonous, what is right or what is wrong? So that is only the thought process can help us out, right? So maybe we can think, would we do same thing when the whole world is watching at you? This will definitely answer your question. We have to think about the future, long-term benefits rather than short-term. We have to join our hands with the system. We have to teach not to run behind money or career. We want to be doctors, engineers, but we never like to see ourselves as a politicians, social workers, because we have branded it as immoral. Youth has to enter into those areas of opportunities and survive the purpose. Youth play a vital role in the every area of national development, as we have experienced the protest in our country, though begins with a loud roar, does not last long. What we have to understand is that we feel in some part of execution. What I understand is we are more focused on media coverage rather than surviving the purpose. The revolution should not be limited to TRP, but for a purpose. But what I believe is the revolution is already begun. Seed is already sown, but have to reach the unreached and must be reaped in every minds. To conclude, let us all act like-minded, join hands for a corruption-free country, and hope for a development in the areas of economy, social, political, and most importantly, educational. I hope to see this in days to come. Thank you for the values and thank you for the valuable time.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Arjun Prakash,
Yes,
for
yes,
giving
sir.
your views. And you says that the youth wants to become doctor, engineer, but not for the political, doesn't want to go in the politics or for the social work.
Yes.
And you have also mentioned that youth is a pure water. How it is going to shape depends on the society or the parents, the family. Which parent asks the youth to involve in drugs, smoking, etc.? I don't think any parents ask the youth or the son or the daughter to do this. This all depends on the youth, how you want to shape yourself. So just to blame or just to say that the older generation should have given us this. Yes, older generation can give you the moral values, what is good, what is bad, but the decision is ultimately of youth. Because I have done many programs on youth, and the youths alleged, and they said that the older generation was not having that knowledge what we are having. It is wrong. The older generation, without any such type of technology advancement, Mr. Pandey can vouch, no electricity, no internet, no mobile phones. Even the telephones were very, very remote, very few telephones in a city or district. They have come out with such a big things. So many IIMs, IITs, medical colleges are there, built by the older generation, not the new generation.
Yes,
So
sir.
the new generation has to understand the contribution of the older generation and try to adopt themselves and adapt themselves in that way, so that they will not try to involve themselves or indulge themselves in corruption. And Mr. Pandey also knows, or the older generation knows, that the corruption was very less in the very beginning in India. That was in very few places the corruptions were there. Not like that. Today, every field, you go to any department, whether it's education or any department, you cannot get the work done without the paying the money, which was not there earlier. Students used to go on merit. But anyways, thank you very much, Mr. Arjun Prakash, for giving your views. Now I would like to move to my next guest, and she is Miss Jonah Maria Job. Miss Jonia Maria Job is an MBBS student of St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. Miss Job, you have heard what our chief guest, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, has spoken, and our earlier youth guests have spoken. Now we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Ms. Jonah Maria Job, please unmute yourself.
First of all, good morning to everyone. And Lal Goel, sir, I would really like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to take part in this wonderful conference. So I guess just as population in India is growing, so is the rate of corruption. And we can find this vicious entity, just like you said, in every kind of aspects in our life, be it in the economic front, the professional front, in ethics, morality, customs, traditions, and even in healthcare. And even in the public healthcare programs, we could see that corruption is an undeniable reality. We could see resources being siphoned off, and which deprives this disadvantaged and the poor sections of the society of their essential healthcare, and which, by the way, is a basic right. And even we can see a lot of healthcare professionals having a lot of stake and stake in the pharmaceutical companies. And this COVID pandemic time, everything's been bizarre. So we could say corruption in general affects the quality of life and to what extent it is accessible to life. Of course, corruption is always and will always go hand in hand with the monetary policy. So higher the authority and power of these decision-making officials, more is the probability to have corruption. So the incidents happening at these higher levels of authority kind of makes us youth and everyone feel a little bit distrust in the rule of law and in law, just like Sir said. Say that the efficiency of public administration determines the extent of corruption. So it's a sad fact to know that the known politicians that we elect, in fact, being led by all these MNCs and these corporate companies. Just to say as an example, the recent farmers' strike is a very good example to showcase the power of all these corporate, that they could even privatize any kind of commodity. So that's what I felt. And saying about corruption, this Sanskrit phrase gets, I get reminded of it. It's called Vasudeva Kudumbakam. It means that the world is a big family. So a huge cultural and social exchange takes place in this world. And so rather than being miserly about one's own profits and benefits, I think it's time to realize the importance of sharing. And what better way to understand it rather than by using education as a means. And just like Sanjay sir said, we could equate education to awareness, to confidence. Awareness in acknowledging and understanding the disadvantages of corruption in our society, and confidence in saying no to it, saying no to corruption. And if a society is being led by such kind of individuals, an acute sense of inventiveness and vision, I'm sure that there will be it would be able to demolish a lot of intrinsic complications. So, and as Alan said before, as students, I feel that doing justice to one's own responsibilities and trying to take up issues pertaining to one's own social circle could make a lot of change. And if each and every one of us tries to do that, the possibilities are limitless. So I would like to conclude with the same ideology I said, Vasudeva Kudumbakam, that the world is one big family. And if any one of the members of our family falls, the whole ship sinks. So it's our attitude that determines our altitude. It's not at all about our aptitude. I guess that if we strive for it, I'm sure that in the future, it will be possible. So thank you, sir, that's all that I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Job. And Ms. Job, you have said about, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself, Ms. Job. Yeah. Ms. Job, you mentioned about that the population is increasing, so the corruption is increasing. If this is so, then you can see the success of the story of the China. They have grown like anything, and they started growing from 80s only, and today where they are, and their population is more than us. So if this is the criteria, that because of the population the corruption is more, then I think the idea is wrong. Ultimately, we have other examples also. We cannot go to say that because our population is more or it's growing, so that's why the corruption is increasing. It is in the perception, it is in ourselves, the youth have to take a decision, and they have to play a very, very big role. Okay,
Yes,
Ms. Chaudhary? Yes.
yes, sir. I do agree with that. But what just I meant with the phrase that with the population increasing is, it's not like the example you said in China. The people there, they just are in their own country and trying to develop it themselves. What we find in our youth is that we try to migrate to other places.
So Ms. Job, fault lies with the youth, not with the country. We should not blame our country or the population. We must blame ourselves because the youth has. Anyway, thank you very much, Ms. Job. Thank you very much. Please mute yourself. There's some disturbance from your. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I would like to move to my next guest, and she is Miss Purvi S. Miss Purvi S, in your profile, you have just said that you are in first year PUC Humanities. Where, from which college or which city you are doing, Miss Purvi? Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. I'm studying first PU here in Bangalore at JNC.
Okay.
Jyotirma,
Yes. So
yeah.
now, Miss Purvi, you have heard our chief guest, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, and earlier youth guest. They have spoken their
Yes.
views. Now we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating
Yes.
corruption. Miss Purvi, please.
Yes. First off, good morning to everyone present here, and I am so grateful for you all to have me here on this platform. It means a lot to me, and I should dive right in to what I have to say. So, corruption. It's a very familiar word. The earliest traces of this word dates back to my school days when we were in the computer lab and we were warned of viruses and malpractices that could corrupt our devices. It only occurred to me later that this word was a bigger predicament to human beings when it imprisoned man in its clutches to corrupt his morality and principles. According to an Oxford dictionary I possess, corruption is defined as evil or immoral. But isn't it more than just that? Isn't corruption just an invisible contagion that has contaminated mankind? Come to think of it, we have been living amidst this pandemic called corruption for decades now. The real question lingers: how do we get rid of it? More intricately, how can the youth of this generation get rid of corruption? If you observe a little more closely, there is a word of optimism in the above statement. The word youth, an utterance that fills my heart with grace and faith. It isn't because we are young, it is because our ideas are young. It is because our propositions and conceptualizations are fresh, inspired from the ethics of our elders and the shortcomings of our forefathers. We are, ladies and gentlemen, the rising generation. At present, does the eradication of corruption exist only as an abstract? Deploringly true, although efforts were made in the vivid past to eradicate corruption, but corruption has not perished, not yet. As a fellow thinking being present here, I'd like to state a fact. Nobody is good or bad. All are human beings capable of both good and evil. So it depends on how we act on it. And this adage has stayed with me throughout my learning, adopted from my resources that enable me to be a better person. So that's why it is possible to postulate that integrity is the metaphorical vaccine to weaken and destroy corruption. Now, moving forward, what actually is the origination of corruption? Is it greed or is it the toxic euphoria of power and position? I say that both add fuel to the fire, but and imbibe corruption in the mind. At one point of life, all have witnessed the basic form of corruption, bribery. In the process, the pathogen of greed cultivates in the mind to encourage corruption. The solution is very clear. We stand up for what is right and we speak up. We need to question the government boldly and demand our the drains. We demand for transparency. We be genuine to ourselves and we barricade this practice of bribery, not just in societal use, but also in personal. Moreover, let us begin from the root of all development, education. We need to bring in alterations in the system of education to the growing generation and address them on the current issues of the society. I believe marks don't serve a purpose as much as skills and values do in helping shape this country fruitfully. We need more practicality more than just rote learning, and this is how we begin with our first step towards a difference. We need to either become role models or designate a role model to ourselves. There is no age limit to do both, because we must embrace our ideals and not a number that dictates our existence on this planet.
Thank you, Ms. Purvi. And Ms. Purvi, you have mentioned that one man cannot move the mountain, but you are not one. Youths are 65%. But the youth are not understanding, or they are not estimating their own power. You can change the world, you can change the country, because if you are 65%, then how the 35% people are making policies for you? You have to become the policy maker. Once the youth will become the policy maker, then only the change will come. And then if you want the policies to be made, then all the youths should come forward and try to be involved in the policy making decisions. And that is only possible if you all decide. And that is where it is not one person, it is the entire youth. So you are the majority, and in democracy, majority prevails. So so don't say that you are only one person cannot, but you are the majority.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
please. Ah.
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree with what you meant to say. And what I mean is that if all of us as the youth come together and contribute, I'm 100% sure that there'll be a difference. As discussed earlier, the only problem is that half of the youth, we are diverted towards things, and it's not because of our parents, like you said. It is because of the peer pressure, and it could be a lot of other factors that are guiding us towards the wrong ways. But if we put our mind where we have potential, and if we believe in ourselves, like you said, I'm pretty sure that we can make a change,
Okay.
to transform this country.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
sir.
We hope, yes, the change should come. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite my next youth guest, and he is Mr. Rupam Das. Mr. Rupam Das is a postgraduate diploma in business administration, is working as a senior software consultant in a leading MNC. Mr. Rupam Das, please. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. And good morning, Mr. Goel. And good morning to our chief guest, Mr. Pankaj.
Mr. Pandey.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Pandey, I'm sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, and also I heard from all the earlier panelists what they have to say about corruption, and it has been impressive and uh, quite encouraging. So, yeah, to start off, I would say I'll start by saying, as I'm from the software industry, and also I am involved with a number of financial sectors. So I'll start by saying uh, corruption was less before, but it has increased, and as corruption increases with more and more change in new technologies and with digitalization and globalization. The more the digitalization we had, the more the globalization we had, corruption increased. But again, it can be controlled. I'll give certain examples which I've seen from my very young from the over the years, and I've seen the various corruptions that has happened in that goes on a day in day out basis. It's like a part of our life. Corruption has become a part of our life. So I'll start by saying about education itself. So when we were within the age of 7 to 14, as Mr. Gold said, right? I've seen uh, many, many, many students getting admitted to highly reputed schools due to donations, due to their power, due to undue practices or corrupt practices taken by their uh, by various powerful leaders, and taking the seats which actually could have been given to more qualified and talented students, right? Who really want to work hard and study. But it was those education went to someone who were initially taught in their very young age that that's how you can improve in your life, right? So there lies the root of our corruption. It's in our it starts from our family, as charity begins at home, and it should actually we to stop corruption, we should end it from there. We should uh, end the corruption in our family itself. So we should make sure, like, we do not whenever we see this kind of corrupt practices, like getting admissions through donations, should be uh, uh, this kind of corrupt practices should not be entertained. The second being, as we have moved, right, as we have come to the age of digital, so as we are in digital, we can see like all our monetary transactions happen through various fintech applications, right, like Paytm, Google Pay, and Phone Pay, and also we use various credit cards and debit cards. We do not have to go to bank every day like our forefathers or our fathers parents used to go to bank every day, or for small transactions to even in cash and all. So as with the this has its own pros and cons. Pros is being we it's been very faster. Our transactions have become very faster. We have been able to uh, mm, means get more time in our life. We have been becoming more productive. But with this came up digital frauds, right? With digital frauds being like we as we can see in a day, we go on getting so many bank fraud calls. Like on an average, I get 10 to 12 bank fraud calls in my phone. And what happens with this calls? They try to get our information that we have, our account information that we have in our uh, phone, or they call us and they say, okay, you are using a credit card and debit card, you can get a new credit card or debit card. You you can get this particular reward and all those stuff, and they try to get information like your OTP, like your card expiry date and all those stuff, right? So these type of corruptions are being done by various corrupt agencies with the help of youth. We youth are involved in it. There is nobody else, right? So this is where we need to uh, you know draw a Lakshman Rekha kind of thing, right? So that where we should stop, we should be self-aware and uh, we should make sure we are self-aware, and uh, we do a self-scrutiny. We do a self-scrutiny of ourselves, that whether we are not going into these corrupt practices. The third being of the various big bank frauds that happen, right? Like investors investing in cheat funds, or kind of small funds where you give every day 10 rupees or 20 rupees and all those stuff. I don't want to take names here, but we all know about things that had happened, and where we are and how we have lost our money. So we should make sure, like, whenever we try to invest in something, I know we are most of our Indian families are come from middle class, and they could not invest in huge means, for savings purpose in various share markets and all those stuff, and they try to get brainwashed by the small cheat funds investors. We should make sure wherever we are investing through. Mm, we have done our due diligence, and we have made sure it's a SEBI certified investment fund, right? SEBI is the security and the security commissions of India. So, so these are few things, and again coming to the
Please
uh,
be brief. Please
yeah.
be brief. Yeah.
So these are the things, and also as I'm from the very software industry, right? So we all know data is the new oil, right? And as during the COVID times, we are working in a environment where we are working from home. Though various securities we have its pros and cons, various measures have been taken to make sure like the data that we have from the data that we work on are not getting leaked and all the stuff. The companies have taken a number of security measures to stop that. Uh, in our working from home, we have our pros and pros being like we have more productivity, the cost is less, companies are also have to spend less cost in most of the things. Yeah. And so
Please,
with this,
please
yeah,
conclude. Yeah.
yeah. So with this, I would like to say, as we move forward, we have the COVID vaccine coming up. We should make sure this COVID vaccine, no corrupt practices are being maintained in the COVID vaccine distribution, and we go by the laws laid by the government. Give it first to the
Okay,
first. Yeah,
thank you very much, Mr. Das. You have made a
yeah.
points. Vaccine, we will have a different topic, so we'll discuss that after some time. But you have made a
Thank
point
you.
about the debit and credit card fraud. And you know, this is happening from a Jharkhand village. And you rightly said the youths are involved in that.
Yeah,
So,
Jamtara.
but to blame the digitalization is not digestible. All the entire world is digitalized more than India. This such types of frauds are not taking place at other places. If you are not aware, I would like to inform you that in USA, even the PIN numbers, OTPs are not there. You can use your
Yeah.
flash your credit card and this thing. So that much frauds are not taking place there. What is taking place in India? So it is
Yeah.
not we cannot pass the blame to the digitalization
No,
or
no,
the
I'll not
advancement
pass
of.
the
So
blame to
it is the
youth.
morals or the morals of everyone, and especially the youth, because they are using this. So that is the thing. Thank you very much, Mr. Rupandas, for giving your views. Now I would like to go to my last youth guest, and she is Miss Vanishka Shaw. Miss Shaw is working as an intern with Indo-Gulf Marketing Association and the Marketing and Research Development. Ms. Shaw, you have heard our chief guest, Mr. Sanjay Pandey Ips, as well as earlier youth guest. They have given you your views. You are the last, but not the least. So we would like to know from you the role of youth in eradicating corruption. Ms. Shaw, please.
Thank you so much, sir, for providing me with this opportunity. For today's agenda, I have few points to add on. Like corruption takes birth in a society when its citizens fail to believe that the nation is a common property of all its citizens. Every situation where you leave truth, you give birth to corruption, no matter how simple or complicated the matter is. If so, you and I would have been corrupted at least once. Corruption is an obstacle that the people of a country must overcome to become a happy state. If there is any power that can free India of corruption, then it is the youth of the nation. Eliminating corruption is impossible without the collective will of the youth, the people, and the government. The next major revolution India will be having is anti-corruption revolution, and it has already started. The youth of the country has a broader outlook regarding issues concerning them and their country. The young adults are passionate, enthusiastic, and quick at expressing their opinions about what is pleasing them and what is displeasing them. The active participation in protest demonstrations and candlelight marches to fight injustice or for any social cause that has been tremendous in the recent past. However, the youth has the potential to do more. Albert Einstein had rightly said, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. India is a developing country facing many challenges. Corruption is the most detrimental of them. Political corruption is worst in India. The most major concerns of corruption is weakening the political body and damaging its supreme importance of law governing the society. In the past few decades, the scams and scandals have tarnished the image of the country in nationally and internationally as well. There were so many scams that people have lost complete interest and trust on the government. The India coal scam, 2G spectrum scam, Satyam scam are some of the many scams, and there's a list going on. They were done by the elected ministers, politicians, and the bureaucrats and the high government officials in the government and society which we live in. The Indian law system is so incompetent and vulnerable that, in spite of being guilty, politicians and bureaucrats and all the high government officials remain scot free. So, considering any segment of our society, be it education, health, media, business, anything, you find a dark mouse of corruption everywhere. Education has become a money making business nowadays, where it has become the right of the rich. Number of financing institutes are increasing day by day. Where will the poor people go? The price of necessary drugs have gone up, and the money allotted for basic facilities, health facilities, are not properly utilized. The result is poor health condition of our people in our nation. The influence of money and muscle power and the perpetual succession, everything is influenced a democracy so much that the criminal can win any case, and you can win elections if you have money. People have started losing the faith in a democracy. Inflation only affects the middle class and the levels that come under it. Our business have forgotten the meaning of corporate social responsibility to an extent that all, in fact, these are the true conditions of our society, and this is why economies addressed as corrupt. So I would like to conclude by saying few more words. The nation belongs to its youth, and they are the makers of tomorrow. what we do today will make and reflect the society tomorrow. To live in a society that is corrupt free, we need people with quality of mind and thoughts. If people come forward to build a stronger nation, our dream of corruption free society is not far away. The youth must strive to reach top positions who can then frame policies for the nations which would bring in development, prosperity, truth, and justice, thereby a corruption free society. The youth must be able to read the pulse of the nation, that must build a sense of patriotism towards its nation. Hence, I request the young adults to play their role, take the responsibility in bringing a change in the system so that others are inspired, and only a collaborative effort of every citizen of India can lead the country towards prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. And Ms. Shaw, you are, as your profile says, you are interned with Indo-Gulf marketing. And
Yes, sir.
you are saying that India, corruption is everywhere. And youth are also involved like what we have. But the same youth, now because you are doing some with association with Gulf, the same youth, when he steps out from the country, anywhere in the world, same youth is corruption free. When they steps in either at Gulf or USA or Europe, anywhere they goes, they abide by the laws of that country without any corruption. They are not involved in the corruption. To say that we all are corrupt, I think it is not. It is either we have no faith on the judicial system, or our judicial system is weak. That's why. But the responsibility of the youth is that when you are not corrupt, when you are going for the studies abroad or for the work abroad, you are corrupt free. You are abiding all the laws there. Are we doing the same thing here in India? We are not doing. You can see the example, very simple example. You go to the any international airport while you are going out and coming back. Once you reach to any other country, you will be standing on the yellow lines, behind the yellow line there, without breaking any queue, whether it takes 1 hour or 2 hours. In India, if there is a hardly 5 or 10 minutes you have to wait at the international airport, you would not like to wait. You would like to break and you would like to rush. So it is the mentality which has to be changed, nothing else. Country is same, country was earlier also the same. The youth has to change their mentality. That is what I feel. So thank you very much, all our youth guests. You have given all the views. Now I think I would like to go to the chief guest. He will give his views first, and then he will like to conclude about you as well as whatsoever he wants to say. I earlier told him 5 minutes, but he can extend up to 10 minutes. I have no issues. Thank you very much. And I ask Mr. Sanjay Pandey, our chief guest, to say the words. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Goel. And I've been listening to all of these very young professionals and some students. Very encouraging to listen to their views. All of them are talking about corruption being a very sad thing and it's taking us behind and it's dragging us down. Let me talk about certain things which are said, and then I will talk about some of my views to conclude what I started with. Well, we should certainly have a nerve. Somebody talked about nerve, and I really endorse that. We should have a nerve to fight this corruption. It's not even a pandemic. I think there could be a much worse word than this. It is really seeping through our general physique on a day-to-day basis. So nerve we all should have, and youngsters for sure. Somebody mentioned about uh, one person I was very impressed about talking about villagers working in Vizag. That's the kind of role and that's the kind of work that the youth could or should do. I still believe and I still base myself on that are we looking at a very minuscule minority? We are in urban I think most of the people are either Bangalore, Mangaluru, or probably some cosmopolitan cities. The 65% of the rural India is actually totally neglected. And that's where somebody said, like politicians, somebody mentioned about the farmers. Now, should there not be an education to them? And I'm not quoting my own views. Again, I go back to our Reverend President. He said, and I endorse and I totally, completely agree, that we in the youth today, you should at least do this as a goal, that you would educate educate a person in your life. I'm talking about only one person. That if you could educate one person, and what is this education all about? You're not talking about maths, you're not talking about algebra, you're not talking about geometry, or maybe any related subject. I'm talking about basic laws, basic rights. See what Constitution says. Our forefathers have really given us a brilliant piece of document. Equality before law, they talk about. But are we equal in terms of day-to-day life? I, as a police officer, as a government person, I would say no, I don't think so. As I started, there's a sense of entitlement. And I'm happy nobody talked about it, so maybe you're not affected. But I believe that 65% of the population today lives in a sense of entitlement. And yes, there is malaise about reservation and stuff. But see, the situation has been is so bad still, that you hear there are panchayats in places which pass judgments. There are places where people are outcast, and it is happening every day. You read it in the press any day. So your effort, each of you, and through you, the rest of you, is that you should at least try to educate on basic things, if you are educated yourself, to our people who are not equally privileged. Not that they have less brains, not that they are less and they will not be able to catch up. They will. So make it as a goal that you will probably educate at least one person outside your family, and certainly your family for sure. You should be the torchbearer for your own family. I'm talking about very small things. Pay the right fare. Pay the right fare when you board an auto. Pay your maid on the right date that she is due. Don't haggle. These are the people who are working for you. These are the people who are supporting you. It's not their free will that they will come and work for you. It's not his free will that he will drive an auto and take you. It's because he has to survive. And we and you as a youth have to support the system. And how do you support? Being fair, being gentle. So that's another thing, that educate, be fair and be gentle. And then I think the India has a very great system. Somebody was a doctor here, and I really appreciated what she was saying. I think Jobs was the name. I don't know the.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. See, the doctors have a program that you will go to rural India and work for rural India. Many doctors are objecting to it. I really don't understand. You as a youth, some of you may come up to policy levels. Let this be a program for everybody. Let there be the engineers go to the rural areas. Let all persons who get graduate degrees go to the rural area. I am privileged. I will say privileged. I used to pay 25 rupees a month to get educated in IIT. But let me tell you this, 70% of us who went abroad, a few of us who remained are still in the cities. I loved my tenure when I was in villages. So I think I did contribute. I was in Bandara and then close to the next areas. But I still didn't have a mandate like the doctors. And I salute them, those who go there. And I will request and I'll urge you, the youth, that look, city is not your life. It's not the end of it. You saying why, now Mr. Goel said why we behave in a particular manner in India and particular manner in abroad. The difference is that probably somebody said about Jugaad. Now that Jugaad doesn't work in US. Jugaad does work here. And why does Jugaad work? Because we are asking for it. We are going for it. And that's where I think you should stop the Jugaad. And maybe it helps a few, but it hurts quite a few, quite a few. And that's where I'm coming from. So don't do that. Don't believe in that jugaad, which happens. So repeating again, just to make this very clear, try to educate one person outside your family. Try to see what rural India is all about. If you don't appreciate, don't like it, I'm telling you about 4 years back, I went to a place close to Bombay. I was looking for land. This is Pali village. I was surprised. There were students sitting under the tree. Why? Because the school did not have a building. This is India. This is just 40 kilometers away from the main city, Bombay. And I'm sure Bangalore also, if you travel 40 kilometers downtown outside, you will see the similar thing. People being taught under the tree. This is the country. And I do not know what that education of the teacher would have been. If you are educated enough, I've been hearing you, I think do educate people and do educate the rural India. And I think some kind of respect that you should show to people with disabilities. And this is again Mr. Kalam saying so. I'm just repeating it for it says you should respect people with disabilities. You should respect people who are who say they're differently abled, and that has to come to your mindset, and that will give them a sense of pride, sense of belonging, which they are slowly and gradually losing. The poor people are losing it because of class society, entitlement. So that's where I am, and I think if I have time, I will just tell you, Mr. Goel, with your permission.
Yeah, please.
You have to place yourself in a liver. If you understand some bit of physics, a liver lifts the society. Your goal should be to lift the society, and you should try to wherever you are. You are a laborer, you are a teacher, you are a doctor, you are an engineer, you are a policy maker. You should all strive to lift the society up, and that's where I think the goal is. Each of you have a role. Very minor things. Just identify one person you teach. Make sure a family is corruption free. First, the charity, as somebody said, begins with non-corruption advice. So that's where I am. And thanks for hearing me out, Mr. Goel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, for giving your views. I'm sure today's program is a very enlightened for not those youths who are participating, but all the youths who are listening, even other citizens also. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, News Gaon se Samvad Saroka News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you every day a new topic. And tomorrow our topic is democracy versus mobocracy. And our participants are Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, One-Man Expert Commission, Government of India, Dr. M. Abdul Salam, former Vice Chancellor, University of Calicut, and Mr. Neoli P. Rajshekharan, writer, music composer, and CEO of Guru Management Consultants, Bangalore. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference at 10:30 a.m. With Lal Goel. And thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, for giving your views, your blessings, and your margdarshan, I will say, to all the youths today, and they will be definitely benefited by your views. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay Pandey, and thank you all the youth guests who have participated today in our program, and thank you all the viewers. Thank you very much.